Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today, we explain Deuteronomy chapter 29 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We're looking at an absolutely fascinating, pivotal moment in the ancient text. It's a moment of ultimate commitment. This entire chapter, right here, is dedicated to the renewal of a monumental covenant. It's honestly a brilliant piece of literature because it combines deep historical reflection, a legally binding oath, incredibly vivid warnings, and then, at the very end, a profound philosophical conclusion about human responsibility. To really understand the immense weight of this chapter, I want you to ask yourself something. What actually happens when an entire nation, past, present, and even the future, stands together to make a timeless promise? This is, without a doubt, one of the most dramatic assemblies in all of ancient history. Just imagine millions of people standing right on the edge of a completely new era. They are listening to a final, sweeping address from Moses just before they finally cross into a land they have been journeying toward for decades. It's a moment of absolute clarity and profound communal responsibility. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, context and past miracles. Second, the universal covenant assembly. Third, warning against bitter idolatry. Fourth, the devastating widespread consequences. Fifth, secret versus revealed things. And finally, key lessons and recap. Section 1. Context and past miracles. Before we can truly grasp the weight of the promise they're making, we really have to understand exactly where the Israelites are standing, both physically and historically. As Moses begins to speak in verses 2 through 4, he summons all the Israelites and immediately grounds them in their own history. He reminds them of step 1, Egypt. He literally says, "Your eyes have seen all that the Lord did in Egypt to Pharaoh. With your own eyes you saw those great trials, those miraculous signs and great wonders." But then Moses points out something incredibly fascinating. He notes that despite witnessing all of those massive plagues and deliverances, to that very day the Lord had not given them a mind that understands, or eyes that see, or ears that hear. Think about that for a second. Witnessing a miracle doesn't automatically grant you the wisdom to understand its purpose. They were physically free, sure, but they were spiritually immature. It took step 2, 40 long years of wandering through a harsh desert, for them to finally grow up as a nation. And now, at step 3, they're standing in the plains of Moab. They've been tested, they've matured, and they are finally ready to truly comprehend the sheer magnitude of this covenant. To prove just how closely and personally God has been guiding them during those 40 years of maturation, Moses lists out these highly specific, intimate miracles in verses 5 through 8. He tells them, "I've led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your clothes did not wear out, nor did the sandals on your feet." Stop and think about the physical reality of that. You're in a jagged, harsh desert environment for 4 decades. That is a continuous, quiet miracle happening every single day. He also reminds them that they ate no regular bread and drank no wine or fermented drink. Why? Well, the text states it directly, "so that you might know that I am the Lord your God." By completely removing the normal human methods of agriculture, baking, and brewing, God stripped away their self-reliance. He forced them to rely entirely on Him for their daily sustenance, specifically the manna from heaven. And finally, he reminds them of their recent tangible military victories. When they arrived at this place, King Sihon of Heshbon and King Og of Bashan came out against them in battle. But Israel defeated them, took their land, and gave it as an inheritance to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. So they have concrete, undeniable proof of God's protection and provision right beneath their very feet. Section 2. The Universal Covenant Assembly. Having established that solid historical foundation of trust, Moses brings them into the present moment for the actual swearing-in ceremony. This is in verses 9 through 15. He tells them to observe the words of the covenant so they may prosper in everything they do. And what is so amazing here is who exactly is invited to stand before the Lord. It's a comprehensive, highly specific list. You've got your leaders, chief men, elders, and officials, the very top of the social and political hierarchy. But it absolutely doesn't stop there. You have all the men, the wives, and the children. And then beautifully, the text explicitly includes the aliens living in your camps who chop your wood and carry your water. The day laborers, the foreigners. Absolutely no one is left out of this. The covenant is completely universal across the entire society, effectively erasing class distances before God. But Moses takes it even further. He takes it into the realm of time itself. He states he's making this covenant and oath not only with those standing there today, but with those who are not here today. He is literally binding future unborn generations to this exact same timeless promise, ensuring the long-term continuity of the nation. This brings us to the core action taking place in verses 12 and 13. Moses says, "You are standing here in order to enter into a covenant with the Lord your God, a covenant the Lord is making with you this day and sealing with an oath." This isn't just some motivational speech or a loose handshake agreement. No way. This is a legally binding sworn contract. The purpose is stated crystal clear, to confirm them this day as his people, that he may be their God. This is exactly what he promised them, and exactly what he swore to their ancient ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The people, in return, are swearing to uphold the laws and statutes. It's a mutual, sacred, and eternal contract.
Section 3. Warning against bitter idolatry.
So once this solemn oath is established, Moses immediately pivots in verses 16 and 17 to warn them. He warns them of the primary, most dangerous threat to this new contract. And that threat? Spiritual infidelity. Moses grounds this warning in their own visual memories. He tells them, "You yourselves know how we lived in Egypt and how we passed through the countries on the way here." They didn't grow up isolated in some vacuum. They were exposed to the absolute pinnacle of ancient pagan cultures and empires. They saw detestable images and idols. And notice how incredibly specific the text is about what these idols are actually made of: wood and stone, silver and gold. Moses is actively demystifying these false gods. He's pointing out that underneath all the cultural reverence and the shiny exteriors, they are just lifeless manufactured materials. Yet he knows perfectly well that the visual temptation of wealthy, gold-clad statues and the practices of the surrounding nations can powerfully draw the human heart away from an invisible God. This psychological danger is beautifully and frankly terrifyingly described in verse 18. Moses urges them to make sure there is no man, woman, clan, or tribe among them whose heart turns away from the Lord to go serve the gods of those nations. He warns them to make absolutely sure there is no root among you that produces such bitter poison. In the original Hebrew, the botanical terms used here are rosh and lana, which are often translated as gall and wormwood. These are incredibly bitter, highly toxic plants. It's such a powerful metaphor. Because, idolatry and rebellion rarely start as a massive, sudden national movement. They start as a hidden root. Just a single poisonous, idolatrous mindset buried deep inside one person's heart. But like a toxic weed, it can slowly grow, spread, and eventually infect a whole community. Listen to the chilling internal monologue of that poisonous root in verses 19 through 21. When such a person hears the words of this covenant's oath and its curses, he blesses himself in his own heart, thinking, "I will be safe, even though I persist in going my own way." This right here is the ultimate arrogance of self-deception. This individual actually believes they can enjoy the blessings, the peace, and the protection of the community's covenant, all while secretly violating it and bringing ruin to the watered land as well as the dry. But the text is fiercely clear. God will never be willing to forgive this willful, arrogant deception. The Lord's wrath and zeal will burn against that man. All the curses written in the book will fall on him, and God will single him out from all the tribes of Israel for disaster, blotting out his name from under heaven. The punishment is tailored directly to that hidden arrogance of the heart. Section 4. The devastating, widespread consequences. The text then zooms way out in verse 22. It shifts from the judgment of the arrogant individual to the macro level. It shows us exactly what happens if this poisonous root isn't dealt with and is allowed to overtake the entire nation. It presents a terrifying step-by-step progression of cause and effect. First, an individual turns away, persisting in their own selfish, idolatrous way. Second, that toxic mindset normalizes and infects the wider community. Third, the consequences fall not just on the people, but heavily on the environment itself. The land is struck with diseases and cursed. And fourth, the destruction becomes so absolute that it becomes a spectacle for the rest of the world. The generation to come, your children, and foreigners from distant lands will look at the plagues and the diseases the Lord has brought on that land. Verse 23 uses incredibly vivid apocalyptic imagery to describe this physical destruction. The whole land becomes a burning waste of salt and sulfur, nothing planted, nothing sprouting, no vegetation growing on it. It is compared directly to the most famous ancient examples of total divine overthrow, the destruction of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in fierce anger. What this translates to practically is total agricultural and economic collapse. A land that was once promised to beautifully flow with milk and honey is turned into a barren, toxic wasteland, simply because the people broke their sacred oath.
When this devastation happens, it's so shocking and absolute that it literally demands an explanation on a global scale. Verse 24 tells us that all the nations of the world will stop and ask, "Why has the Lord done this to this land? Why this fierce, burning anger?" The sheer contrast between the glorious promise of the land and its charred reality will be completely incomprehensible to outsiders, unless they know the context of the covenant. The text immediately provides the direct, undeniable answer to that global question in verses 25 through 28. The answer declared to the world will be, "It is because this people abandoned the covenant of the Lord, the God of their ancestors, the covenant he made with them when he brought them out of Egypt. They went off and worshipped other gods and bowed down to them, gods they did not know, gods he had not given them. Therefore, the Lord's anger burned against the land, bringing on it every curse written in the book. In furious anger and great wrath, the Lord uprooted them from their land and thrust them into another land as it is now." You see, the consequences are explicitly tied to the breach of the contract. There's no mystery to the destruction here. It is the direct, tragic execution of the penalties laid out in the oath they swore. Section 5. Secret V's Revealed Things. We now arrive at the philosophical climax of the entire chapter in verse 29. After dealing with all this heavy, intense prophecy of destruction and exile, Moses concludes with a truly profound statement about the limits of human knowledge and the core of human responsibility. He says, "The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may follow all the words of this law." Let's break down this crucial contrast because it's brilliant. The secret things, those are the deep mysteries of the universe. Why exactly God does certain things, the precise timeline of the future, the hidden workings of divine justice, or even what is truly in another person's heart. We cannot fully know these things, and honestly, it's arrogant to try to control them. They belong to God alone. However, the things revealed, the laws, the ethics, the clear instructions in the covenant, those belong to us. We aren't responsible for decoding the secrets of heaven. We are entirely responsible for acting upon the clear moral and societal duties God has given us on earth, today and forever.
Section 6. Key Lessons and Recap. We've walked step by step through this extraordinary historical assembly, the severe warnings, and the philosophical conclusion of the chapter. Let's distill all of this into practical life lessons. First, your personal choices deeply impact the entire community. You cannot isolate your actions. A toxic root in one person can spread, normalize, and bring down an entire nation. Your ethics matter to everyone around you. Second, arrogance and self-deception are incredibly dangerous. Telling yourself, "I'll be safe even if I go my own way," while ignoring the rules of the community is exactly what the text calls a bitter, destructive poison. Being honest with yourself is paramount. And finally, we have a great lesson in focus and humility. We have to dedicate our energy to the duties, ethical actions, and righteous behaviors clearly revealed to us, rather than endlessly obsessing over the unanswerable mysteries of life that belong only to God. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought based on verse 29. While the secret things aren't ours to know, what revealed things are you responsible for acting upon in your own life today? What clear instructions, ethical duties, and communal responsibilities are right in front of you, just waiting for your attention? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.